Hi, I'm Zachary Fowler of Fowler's Makery and Mischief, and you're watching Jami and I react to Alone Season 4, Episode 5. So, you ready, hun?
Yep.
Here we go. This episode has been brought to you by Fowler's Makery and Mischief.com, t-shirts, slingshots, shovels, and the new survival bracelets from WAZOO and Fowler Orange, linked below and at the end.
Save the neck for me, Clark.
Oh, this has been making me angry.
I'm sorry. Jami and I, we cooked duck and raised chickens and guinea hens and rabbits and all that stuff. And no offense, but that's my biggest complaint of all of these shows, how often people cook stuff over a fire. I mean, I'm thinking if I get that duck, I'm going to put it in a saltwater brine for about 12 hours, and then, get some sprigs of rosemary, things like that,
Well, maybe not rosemary, but at least seaweed, or juniper berries, or pine tips.
Pine tips, yeah, pine or something like that to flavor a little bit, and...
I see all sorts of usnea hanging out of the tree. You could have made, some tea with that.
Slow cook it over your fire in a pot, covered, to keep in all the moisture and the goodness, and so that you don't boil off any of the fats. And
fats are what they need the most, more than protein. They've got protein laying all over the beach in limpets and little snails and
I'm fairly convinced too that the better you cook something, the softer it is, the more you chew it up, and the more your stomach is going to be able to break it down and digest it, and the less work it has to do and burn calories to digest that food, and you don't expel nutrients that your body could be using. So, I don't know, let's see where they go from here.
I've decided that I have to change my shelter. I want to make it a little bigger for when Jim gets here.
Well, yeah, that's the best he's been able to do in like a week.
He can find me when he gets here.
I think he doesn't need anything more, so he hasn't bothered to do anything more.
That's not long-term thinking, though.
While you're up here.
Just because he doesn't need more now doesn't mean he's not going to need more later.
Yeah, but maybe his long-term his focus right now is on getting food. Hurry up, Jim! Your brother's waiting for you. The bubbles are close together.
Damn it, Jim. I'm a hiker. I'm a camper, not a hiker.
See, these guys, Sam and his dad, have an advantage now. Because they're not going to be cutting themselves on the axe and going home early.
So, getting into camp.
I'm sorry, Sam, I couldn't resist.
Got a great shelter, so we're kind of covered in that regard.
Look, he does have a jap saw. The dad had a jap saw there. So, the axe is nice, but they can totally live without it.
There you have it. That is how you go fishing with as little effort as possible.
I think having a Duck Hunter 3000 is how you go fishing with as little effort as possible.
That took that took so much effort to build, though.
Yeah, but how many lines did you have hanging off of it?
I had 2 at one point, but they just tangled each other when I catch fish with it, so I went to 1.
Jim's here!
Nice.
Unbelievable.
Woo! Go, Jim. Uh-oh.
And his brother's hoping the same thing. Could be a problem.
Hey, maybe he saved him half the slug.
Ew.
Whoops. We got a bleeder.
Ooh, there's a lot of blood coming out of that.
Good job, Brock Dwarf, souping the fish.
We are feeling so much better right now. There's some food in our bellies. And,
the thing about making soup is then you have all that delicious broth to drink, and it just kind of fills in all the cracks where the food settles in. I think it leaves you feeling a lot more full than just eating something charred over a fire. It's way more satisfying, especially in that kind of weather, to have a hot liquid to have with your meal.
You kill yourself, I don't want to have to go home, Dad.
Right? Never mind the fact that you're dead.
And Mom wouldn't appreciate that if I come home without you.
Well, he'd bring him home.
Yeah. Oh, that's awful. I feel like we're doing a lot of heckling this episode.
Yes, and on a scale of 1 to 10, here's your score so far.
You see Sam and their dad, they build their shelter, and they're using wire, which I've seen 2 people so far that seems to have brought wire, which is clever. But the tails on the wire that they had left on there, did you just see that?
Were they long?
Yeah, they looked like they were 5 inches long. After they tied them off. Maybe they're gonna snip those off, and they are long enough that they could snip those off and then use them again. But I couldn't help but notice that. I feel like I'm like overpicking on everything that people do, and they get plenty of time to, you know, do different things.
Well, just remember, you only get to see a little bit of what happens.
Yeah, and so if you're watching and you're being critical of like things that people are doing, that's something to remember. We only get to see a small amount of time. I mean, my whole 87 days, you see 2, maybe 2.5 hours of my whole time out there. These guys, depending on how much time they're out there, they've been out there 12 days or whatever now, and we've only seen, you know, not even an hour of each of their adventures, you know. So, I'm reminding myself more, just as much as I'm reminding you, don't be too critical. You're not out there, you're not hungry. What? They even found a bait bag? Holy cow. That is a beautiful trap. That's a work of art. Wow, that's it. That's it. What do you think?
That was a fun episode.
A lot to get us riled up about and excited for them, and like, ah. And a bit of head smacking, like, you're cutting your finger. This show never goes on without somebody cutting themselves, it seems like. You know, it's like that's a given, I think, that somebody's going to cut themselves. Considering how long they're out there and how much they have to do, I don't think it's that so much of their boneheads as it's just going to happen. You know, I drove something into my hand at one point and had to put plantain on it for like a week, and it was fine. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And I'm gonna head up on out of here, do my thing, teleport to a new location, and I'll talk more about the episode. Whew. All right. Wow. Another great episode. What an amazing adventure these guys are having. I'm a little bit jealous. It still makes me miss being out there. The fonder part of the memories, not so much the missing the family parts, but yeah. And then, wow. You know, Brooke and her husband catching some fish, getting that duck there. She totally dispatches that. I have to apologize, Brooke, but you know, and I don't want to like criticize what people are doing out there because I'm not there. But that's Jamie and I's biggest gripe you heard us talking about before, is that people that don't stew things. But you don't do that with fish. You smoke fish so it gets the flavor to it, and then you like burn it on the coals and then eat it, and then you take the remains and turn that into soup so you get every last nutrient out of it. But I disagree with her on the whole cooking any red meats over the fire. I think that's a teeniest bit wasteful, and you're missing an opportunity to stew it. I'm sure though, I'm like 99.9% certain that they would have taken whatever remained and continued to make a soup and probably eaten that until it dissolved to nothing. So I know that they wouldn't just throw it away, but that initial cooking over the fire, I disagree with that very strongly. I think it's very important that you cook your foods down, slow cooking them, like something like that, or rabbit, so you dissolve it and you get as much as you possibly can, breaking down the fibers so that you get the nutrients and all the calories you possibly can get out of something out there. It's so important to get as many calories as you can into you. These guys are nailing it, and every other and all of the aspects, you know, everywhere else. You know, Brooke and her husband making fishing rigs, reeling in the fish, doing awesome. Then we see Sam and his dad nailing the fish, bringing in 5 fish. They all have some clever ways of going about it. Brooke and her husband are doing a hand line around a stick, which I never did out there on Alone, and I never managed to, my little bit of hand lining I tried, never managed to succeed at it at all. So I went with all my static lines with the spring poles and all that different stuff. And we see Jim and Ted's Excellent Adventure is finally together, and they're having a time of it being together. That's funny. I think everybody's been predicting that once these two brothers get together, they squabble, and sure enough, they built, one brother there, Jim, builds this gorgeous crab trap. And he's right about the bait bag. It wouldn't make a difference one way or the other whether it's hanging. It's the scent. They scent stuff out and they come after it. It doesn't matter that they feed down low and they believe like that, or if they're gonna be pinching stuff from above. The crabs, they're gonna go after it because it stinks. You know, the stinkier and the nastier it is, the more they're probably gonna go after it. So, you know, there's a whole thing with lobstermen. Some people believe rotten bait is the best way to go, and some people believe fresh bait is the best way to go, and they swear but they catch more lobsters than the other guy based on that. It's just the way it is. Maybe not investing so much time in one awesome trap as just taking a bundle of boughs and bundling them together in a loose bundle with a rope around them and sticking the bait in the middle. Because when you go for lobster and you go through the seaweed, you can kick up crabs and lobster inside the seaweed. So if you were to put a pile of boughs together in a big bunch and the crabs go into the middle to try and catch that stuff, and when you haul that wad of brush out, there's going to be a lot of crabs inside there feeding off of your bait bag that you put in the middle of there. And something like that, you could bundle up 10 or 20 of those, toss them in on a string of line, and then when the tide goes out, weighing them down with rocks, you just pluck each one of those out, shake out your crabs, and throw them back in again with some fresh bait, and you'd be going back fishing again. I think that might be the better way to win, instead of going overly elaborate, which is my technique. Is I'll always go overly elaborate, so I'm not criticizing them in that way. As just an idea I had to get more traps out there. And that's one thing I thought about after I've been back, is how to get more traps out more often. And we see Sam and his dad building a shelter. Dad's tired out, he's an older guy, he's got to check himself before he wrecks himself kind of thing, you know, and his son's like ragging on him about it. You know, it is what it is. I think, you know, he's strong character, so, you know, in some ways that can carry him through that, but will this being hungry take away from that? They're all just pushed over the point, I think, where their bodies have transitioned into a ketogenic state where they're starting to digest their own body fats for energy more than anything else. So the initial weakness and headaches and things like that, they're past that, and they can start thinking clearer, and the accident proneness is a little bit less likely as long as they keep up those calories and start putting food into them. So I didn't mention before, I see Ted building his boat. I like his boat, I like the direction it's going. He notices it's a little deep, you know, and that's true. I think it'll make a balance issue, but at the same time, if he was to put something more in the bottom of it, as long as he keeps his weight down low in it, it'll make it harder to paddle that way. But he could just as easily run another stringer and lower the tarp edge and just have that as an upper rail, or just reset his rails lower. It looks like it'll work, and I think he's on a good track there. The boat would allow him to get out there. They're starting to see the rain now, and the Wilkes brothers are experiencing the difficulty because of that rain and that wind and that chop, that they're not gonna be able to catch fish. And if that continues, they're gonna have to figure out a method to get down underneath that chop and try to get some sort of a crab trap, something that'll produce for them. Like I was talking about all those brush piles, that might work for them if they think of something like that, and then they'd be able to catch more food, because they need that food. And the shelters, the rains have started a little bit. Will they continue? If they continue, the shelters are going to be one of the most important things outside of food. Yeah, so it looks like they all got it on the run. They all have a plan. So shelters, food, keep on surviving. That's all for me. Thanks for watching. Fowler out.